So we have some important news on the current efforts to remove the remaining restrictions on short-barreled rifles. A new lawsuit has been filed to strike down state bans on short-barreled rifles. This is in direct response to the NFA tax changes that just passed in the Big Beautiful Bill. So let's break down what is happening. Now before we jump into this video, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is TacPack. TacPack is a subscription-based box that delivers tactical and EDC gear to your front door every single month. And right now, TacPack is doing something special for my viewers. This month, we are celebrating Christmas in July, and anyone that uses my code ARMED for a TacPack Plus subscription box, you will get a free gift of tactical gear worth at least $125. The freebie will actually ship with your first TacPack box, so you're gonna get it when you get your first subscription-based box. So if you've been interested in TacPack, this month is definitely the month to jump in, so you can get that free additional freebie gift worth $125. I will leave a link down below to TacPack where you can get a subscription. It's gonna be in the pinned comment as well. And don't forget to use my code ARMED for that additional freebie. So as I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we need to talk about what is currently happening right now in response to the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act, which were pushed in Congress, and eventually the passing of HR 1 with the changes to the NFA tax requirements. Now, many of you are aware that recently HR 1 passed, and included in that bill was the simple reduction of the NFA tax. So under the new law change, the NFA tax is going to be reduced from $200 to $0, and that will start at the beginning of next year. Now, in my eyes, that was a half measure, and unfortunately, rhinos in Congress were unwilling to press the issue and get the full versions of the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act that we actually wanted included in the bill. They were also unwilling to remove the Senate parliamentarian who was responsible for striking out the full versions of the language that we actually wanted. However, this fight is far from over. In response to the zero tax language that just passed, lawsuits are now being filed and launched already against the NFA and all the remaining unconstitutional restrictions on SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors. GOA, FRAC, Palmetto State Armory, and Silencer Co. recently filed a lawsuit against the ATF in the Northern District of Texas. That lawsuit directly challenges the remaining NFA registry components in light of the new tax change from $200 to $0. However, there have been also other lawsuits that have now been launched directly challenging state bans on suppressors and now also state bans on short-barreled rifles. FBC recently filed a lawsuit against the state of New Jersey and their SBR ban. This lawsuit aims to strike down the state's ban on SBRs and therefore also open the door to remove any state bans in other states on those types of firearms as well. This case is titled FPC versus Platkin, and it's filed in a federal district court in the state of New Jersey. This lawsuit directly challenges the New Jersey ban on the purchase and possession of SBRs within that state. The plaintiffs used the recent changes in the NFA tax requirement as a mechanism to open up new challenges to remove these type of state bans. Now, in this lawsuit, FPC argues that rifles, including SBRs, are unquestionably arms under the Second Amendment's text, and rifles, including SBRs, are in common use in the United States. They state that the ATF has reported that as of May 2021, there were 532,725 SBRs registered with the agency. 3 years later, the ATF reported that the total SBR registrations increased to essentially 870,000 plus SBRs. Given the trend in SBR registrations, there may be over 1 million short-barreled rifles registered with the ATF today, and crimes using rifles of any kind, let alone SBRs, are exceptionally rare. Because they are rarely used in crimes, it must follow that SBRs are in common use for lawful purposes. They go on to argue that if an item qualifies as an arm, the Second Amendment's protections apply to it. The government must then shoulder the burden of proving at least that there is a historical tradition of regulating arms to support the challenged regulatory scheme. But SBRs are neither dangerous nor unusual, and there is no historical tradition of prohibiting SBRs. SBRs thus cannot be banned. They state that New Jersey, however, unconstitutionally prohibits, on pain of serious criminal sanctions and potentially years of imprisonment, typical law-abiding people from buying, owning, or lawfully using SBRs. In no uncertain terms, the ban's leading provisions outlaws possession of any short-barreled firearm as a third-degree crime. So they state that not only do they prohibit these items, but there are serious penalties with the purchase and possession of SBRs, and they argue that these are clearly in common use based on the numbers and that they're used for lawful purposes. These are not arms that are used heavily in crimes. They conclude the complaint by asking for two forms of relief. Plaintiffs first request a declaration that enforcement of New Jersey's SBR ban violates Section 1983 by unconstitutionally infringing the plaintiff's rights protected by the Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment. They request that the relief should be extended to both the primary SBR prohibition and all of the associated laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. The second form of relief that they ask for is for the relief here to apply against the state of New Jersey and all of their officers, agents, and employees, all law enforcement officers, and all of those individuals, and that they should be enjoined from enforcing any aspect of the SBR restrictions. So in essence, they ask for the court to strike down the law as a violation of the Second Amendment and block all New Jersey law enforcement and all officers and agents from enforcing that aspect of the law. So this is a very important challenge that is now going directly against a state ban on SBRs. We have already seen GOA and other organizations file lawsuits, in Texas federal courts to remove the remaining NFA restrictions. So that's going directly against the NFA to remove the registry. And they're doing that in light of the $0 tax change. And now you have SAF, who also filed a lawsuit in New Jersey going after state bans on suppressors. And now you have FBC filing a separate challenge, which is going directly against the state's restrictions on SBRs, getting rid of SBR bans, and they aim to strike that down also as a violation of the Second Amendment. This is a multi-pronged attack in response to the Big Beautiful Bill and the NFA tax changes, and I would also suspect soon that you would see similar lawsuits in other states like California, Illinois, and other states that have similar type of suppressor bans and also SBR bans. So this is a really solid case, and now we're going to be waiting to see how this challenge develops. I would also suspect probably in the suppressor case filed by SAF and this SBR case filed by FBC that we're going to maybe see the Trump DOJ jump in support of removing these state bans. We've already seen them do similar things when it comes to suppressor challenges, specifically the Peterson case out of the Fifth Circuit. You had the Trump DOJ jump in that case and say that potentially the NFA's registry is constitutional, but a state cannot outright ban those items. So they've already said that state bans like state bans on suppressors and SBRs is unconstitutional. And now you have lawsuits directly going after those state bans. So I would suspect that the Trump DOJ may support these challenges as well. So that's what's going on with this new lawsuit that was filed kind of in response to the NFA tax changes going directly against a state ban on SBRs in response to the Big Beautiful Bill and the $0 tax change. Now we're going to wait to see how this develops, but good news that you have now challenges going after states and their bans on NFA items like SBRs and suppressors. So as we get more information, as this develops, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is, of course, to simply subscribe to the channel. That helps the channel to grow. But also, if you want to support the channel, you can check out the free legal guide that we have available. It's free to get. All you have to do is put in your email. We'll send you a PDF, and then you get some follow-up emails with additional educational information. And again, that's just a great way to connect with me and to get some free value as well from that legal guide in the email list. But regardless, thank you guys so much for all of your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.